Good morning, I'm Clara and I come from the Rhode Island School of Design. I wanted to start giving a brief introduction of why I became an architect and what inspires me from this. Architecture is a way of expression, is a way I can create, I can make spaces that inspires us and create experiences. So I graduate with a master's in architecture in Spain, and I work for 4 years in 3 different countries and 3 different companies in the Netherlands after that. So the 2 most outstanding projects I work for is this one, the Rijksmuseum for Crucial Artists. It was an amazing experience. And the Dutch Ministry in The Hague for Hof van Jordaan, where we renovate 2 Dutch ministries and create a dynamic space by creating a special atmosphere in every floor office. We were blowing up Dutch classics and pixelate and create the carpet of every floor, giving an identity to this space. It's a really short summary of the concept. But I got a Fulbright scholarship, so I had to quit my job, unfortunately, but I was ready to to make a new step in my career. I wanted to specialize further in adaptive reuse in the Rhode Island School of Design. And this is like an analysis of all the different design strategies in adaptive reuse possible. And adaptive reuse is so important because we can empower the memory of the cities, we can give continuity to history, and I think this image shows really well what adaptive reuse means and what it creates. It gives a new layer, a contemporary layer that comes over an existing space, and it regenerates this. It makes to look at this in a different way. And I'm sure, I took this photo in Boston while I was working there. I'm sure I had never looked at this little dirty corner if this wouldn't be there. So I think also adaptive reuse, it gives a new, it's a way to create a sustainable architecture that is different from adding just sustainable features into the buildings, because we just have to reuse what we have. And I'm really concerned about all this, how we are destroying our planet. It really breaks my heart to see these images. So I thought it was really interesting. And architects and designers have a big role in saving the planet by approaching strategies like this, reusing what we have. So my first project I did in the Rhode Island School of Design was a renovation of an old pump of the city of Copenhagen, a building from the 1859, and I had to create a museum. So I decided, well, I was back in a school, so I was going to explore also with the media, and I decided not to do just a museum, but to do a park, a public space for the city of Copenhagen. So I made my whole project by hand and with watercolors because I wanted to enjoy a lot the process. So I made 2 additions to the existing buildings. One it will be the auditorium, the other will connect the different pieces of the existing building, and this will create an independent museum for the park. Besides that, I will create this public space for the city that will close the green circle, and it will work completely independently for the citizens of Copenhagen to go there. They didn't have to pay to enter in the museum, they could just go to the park. And the way I decided to intervene in the existing building was by bringing natural light in as much as possible. And I think this is really interesting. To do it in a museum, we need to have a control light coming from the north. So I integrated panels oriented to the north, so the visitors will have direct views to the outside, but indirect reflected light in the inside. And it's really interesting because afterwards I discovered there is another museum, the D.I. Bacon in New York, which also brings as much natural light as possible, and only opens during daily hours or while there is light outside. So this is really interesting because it's a sustainable approach just by a really small change or addition into the existing. And my next project is I had to make a design foundation into this building in Boston. It was an old warehouse from the 1943. It was used for building boats and for storing some of the materials. So here is not that bad, but when we visit the museum, the building, we were really terrified by it. Like, what are we going to do with this building? It's so ugly. Like, I know many people will think we need to demolish it, and the ground is much more valuable than the building itself. But here it comes a big question. What do we do with all those ordinary buildings? Because, in fact, most of the buildings that are beautiful or monumental, there are not so many. We don't have so many charts. We don't have so many warehouses, old factories made out of brick and beautiful, rich materials. In fact, most of the buildings we have are rather ordinary. So I think here it comes the real challenge for architects. Like, we should do something about this. And if we really want to make an impact in the environment, we should think that these will be the buildings we need to think on reusing. So my concept for the building was to make a rotation of the upper level. I just was allowed to work in one of the levels. So it's a short summary of why the concept does this, but I wanted to orient this towards the city center and towards the dry dock that was next to it. And I will keep the structure as a ghost of what it was there, but the columns will remain. Here we see like the building try to follow the structure of the street and the urban planning in the city. And when I was analyzing the building, I thought I want to keep the structure because it's the most interesting feature in the building. It's made out of metal pillars in a grid of 16 by 16. So I thought it was an interesting structure, that it was not so common. And the beams and the walls, they were made out of wood. So I will keep the wood and the structure that was in the intersection of the rotation, but all the wood that was outside that, it will be used for creating the new envelope that I was making out of this rotation, and also the new boxes that will determine the interior of the space. I was just rotating the envelope, in fact, not the whole structure, but I needed a supporting structure, and this rotation of the building will lay on a new bridge that was going to work as the entrance of the museum also. And of course, I integrated sustainable features like solar panels, louvers that will open and close, trying to get solar gain when necessary, and closing for reflecting the radiation, and it will work as a double facade. I will create green terraces with green roofs. And with this, I just wanted to say that I don't want to refuse to create a contemporary architecture, but I think we as architects can really do something about with these existing buildings and trying to make something special out of something that was really ordinary. So we should try to build with less new and trying to reuse more. I hope I managed to convince you about that. Thank you very much.